to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross, licensed agent with Second City Real Estate. With me as always is Mark Ainley, founder and owner of GC Realty. Mark, I got to see you in the flesh earlier today, twice in one day. This is great.
Well, two guys like you and me, like to be able to sit down for 2 or 3 hours and strategically plan, like that's just impressive in itself. And me and Tom got to do that today. So Tom came out to our office. We did our Q2 planning. And let me just start here, Tom. Like you came out in January, I think the first week of January or last week of December, and we sat down for 3 hours and we accomplished so much. And what we did the next 3 weeks, we built a list of things we got to knock out, and we did a lot. We did a lot for the show. We did a lot for where we're trying to go. We did a lot for just trying to build a community and provide a better content here, right? And that was huge. And it gave us good. And this kind of goes to anybody doing anything. Like it gave us good motivation for wanting to get together here today and be able to continue on like a whole other list of items to knock out in the upcoming weeks to better the product, the service, the connections, the opportunity for ourselves, for the listener, and so forth. So it's awesome. Like it's very rejuvenating is a good word, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Getting out of the day-to-day grind and just sitting here saying, hey, what can we accomplish over a 90-day period, right? And just getting those things ready to, so you can do the appropriate blocking and tackling.
Man, and then we did our first combo Facebook Live. We actually recorded something in person together outside the 100th episode. We've never done that. We did the funny thing is we did the Facebook Live to give away the tickets for the Midwest conference, which might have happened by the time this airs, but we gave away that ticket based on people leaving us a review. So thank you I think we had 43 people leave reviews for us to enter in that contest. So, but keep giving us reviews because that helps us. It helps us in a whole bunch of different things. But we did the Facebook Live, and no one really saw the perfections, but we jumbled around trying to figure out how to do it on the Zoom, sending it to Facebook. And I just picked up the phone and we just did it just from my hand. So it was pretty funny how we tried to be more sophisticated than we had to be.
Simple, baby. Keep it simple.
Simple.
So. All right, what do we got for the housing provider tip?
All right, for housing provider tip, before we get that though, just make sure that if you are listening, please leave us a review like I just said, and then go to our YouTube page. We got the GC page, and we got the Straight Up Chicago page. Smash that like button. Give us some feedback. Leave some comments. If people leave comments, we're always very interactive. So please contribute. But for housing provider tip of the week, listen, on our property management side for GC Realty, we are onboarding a lot of clients these last couple of months. And there's a lot of Cook County leases that we're having come in that are still not compliant with the RTLO. So June 1st, 2021, the RTLO passed in Cook County, which requires just like specific disclosures and security deposit rules and notices about how long you have to move in and just all this different stuff that if you don't have part of your lease, you are putting yourself at risk and leaving yourself exposed for, landlord tenants to come after you. So make sure that you are following the right Cook County lease. If anyone wants to reach out, they can reach out to me and make sure they have the right lease. But, Cook County has a realtor board version that's out there that's good to use, that has all the proper disclosures. But, even I put this on the Facebook group yesterday. We're onboarding people that came through Avail, which is a platform for self-managers, which is a great platform. I'm not knocking it, but the recommended template on there is the wrong template. Like it's not helping anybody. It's actually hurting you. So make sure if you are using Avail or any of those services for self-management, make sure if they're providing you the document, make sure it's the right document. Again, if anyone needs help, I can at least point you in the right direction or provide the right template. Otherwise, most realtors can do so as well.
Awesome. Good stuff. We can link to that in the show notes. All right. Today's guest, we had to twist his arm a little to get on, but I'm happy he's here. So, thanks to Jake Fugman from the Axon Group for making the introduction. And then we got to meet in person at our 200th episode event, which is great. But today's guest, they hit family business. They actively own and operate over 430 units, most of them on the city and the near west burbs. They have years of experience starting with Condo Deconversion, at the same time picking up apartments and then untangling all that to get to the place where they are now, where quote unquote, he said it's boring. We just buy apartments and keep them. So a great strategy, which I love, and boring is sometimes very, very good and very, very fruitful. So without further ado, we have one of the owners of OAC Management, Brian Basic. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
We are pumped to have you. So we're going to dive into this at a deep level, but high level, family business, man. Do you have any cool horror stories, right? Is there any, Thanksgiving food fights over buying this apartment or not buying this apartment?
Honestly, if you met my dad and then met me, we're pretty much very similar people. And you'd think maybe there'd be a lot of clashing because of that, but honestly, we're usually always on the same page. So nothing too crazy.
So who's all involved in the family? Is it just you and dad? Is any
On the real estate side of our business, it's just me and my dad, and then my mom does like the background accounting.
Got it. Keeps everything in order.
Yeah.
All the bookkeeping.
It's just that stuff over there.
Yeah. Stuff as investors, you're like, yeah, that stuff.
It's dumb numbers.
The accountants listening to this are like, God damn.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of work, honestly, for her, but she's very organized. She keeps it all together. She does an awesome job. And in between being a grandmother. So my sister has 2 kids. So that's taking priority over work right now.
Well, that makes you an uncle. So congrats on that too.
All right. So Uncle Brian, talk to us how we got started here. So, it's an interesting story. We were talking before we turned the mics on here. Give us a little background you came on 2014, started buying apartments, but sounds like your dad was doing condo conversions before that. Give us some of that history, because as we talked about, that's some of the stuff that kind of shapes how you invest today.
Right. So my dad's retired Chicago fireman, bricklayer. He bought his first 2-flat when he was 20. Then he kind of went from there and did it, self-managed, buying more units. That's kind of his story. I come into the picture a little bit later. And when I come in, he was doing condo conversions. So he partnered up with someone, and he left kind of the apartment business and got into the condo conversion business, and that was in what would that have been, like the 2000 to 2008, basically. And so in 2008, I was 18. I went to DePaul for college. I studied real estate at DePaul, got my master's degree at DePaul too. And when I jumped in, it was probably closer to 2011, 12, 13. That's when I was really kind of trying to get interested in the business. And at that point, we had maybe like 800 apartments, I guess, but there were condos, and where we were majority owner in these complexes where there were half sold conversions, and we had an HOA set up, and there's kind of a lot to dive into there. I'll let you guys pick away at it.
It sounds like a mess.
Yeah, there's a lot, but you know what? We have a lot of younger listeners. I get people all the time that are coming out of high school that reach out to us. Real estate degree that didn't exist 20 years ago. What kind of classes did you take? Did you just take like how to?
I think I was the first year, or one of the first years, where DePaul even had a real estate program. And it's funny because it's 2008, and if you talk to like anyone in school, they're like, why are you studying like real estate? That's stupid. Like, it's a mess. Like, people are losing their homes and things like that. So, but I didn't really, and even what was going on, kind of because I was always interested in real estate, I still had a passion for it. I still wanted to learn how to, ultimately, my dad always says, learn how to make money while you're sleeping. And it was like, that real estate, you could do that.
How deep did you have to learn as part of your degree? Did you do like finance? Was there a big part of that?
Yeah, there was like a real estate financing class. There was real estate law. College is interesting, right? Because like, it's like a nice, I mean, you learn and you don't absorb enough, but you have like fundamentals to fall back on. But I mean, you really start to learn when you start to do this stuff every day, and that's where it really gets embedded. So it was like a great foundation for real estate, I guess. Learning like how other people underwrite, learning a lot of the legal jargon and terms that you're going to run into and things like that. But it was a good foundation to go into my career of real estate.
Awesome. So your dad, just more context here. Your dad bought that first 2-flat. He did a whole bunch of stuff. He was doing these conversions, or condo deconversions, or condo conversions, which is very unusual now. People don't, a lot of the new people don't even know what that is. But talk to me about what neighborhoods you guys were in. What was this, all southwest suburbs? Where are you guys from? Where'd you guys from?
So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I grew up east of Midway Airport in a neighborhood called West Lawn. Went to St. Rita High School, all boys Catholic high school. My dad grew up in the same spots. He went to De La Salle, and so this is kind of like where we're from. And my parents and everyone still kind of live over this way, but I live down in Westtown in the city.
And that's where you started investing too in all those projects.
No, so the projects, like if we want to start with the condo conversions, so they were really scaling up and they were buying 250, 300 unit complexes and taking those and converting them into condos and then selling them off to either an individual investor or an owner occupant. And it was a big popular thing, from the early 2000s all the way into the great financial crash, mostly because there was a lot of, you guys know now, but all the real easy lending and if you ever watched The Big Short or anything like that, where you could just use stated income and get a loan. So it made it a lot easier to peddle a lot of real estate. We at the time we were believing we were turning renters into owners, but now looking back on all the carnage, it just kind of was like a big mess. And maybe some of those people shouldn't have bought condos; they should have just remained renters.
100%, man. That's how I cut my teeth in real estate was the whole condo conversion thing. I would go into a development of maybe we even came across paths with your dad in the past, get in early that first before they bump the prices. And I would talk to these guys that I knew that were 10 years older than me in 30, 40s, and they could get a loan, right? Because anyone could get a loan. And I'd say, listen, here's the strategy, man. You're going to buy this property. You're going to be, rents weren't high at all back then. You're going to be $100 underwater. And we're going to hold on to it for 6 months. And when the development sells out, we're going to sell it and you're going to make 30 grand. And I did that. I made a lot of people a lot of money. But it was a really, looking hindsight, what a totally wonky, I made a lot of people a lot of money, and a lot of the connections I made, I still have today. But that's how I got in to the business was those conversions. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's exactly what was going on. And they made money hand over fist for a long time. But if you ever have him on here, he'll tell you on, kind of maybe hindsight looking back and what he thinks about it today and at the time. But, all that money that they were making, that's ordinary income. You become a dealer, you don't get all the benefits that we get today of owning real estate, so.
Someone who flips properties, I can relate there, right? 40% Uncle Sam off the top, right? For all that work. And it's all right, sweet. What am I doing here?
Paying taxes at the highest amount.
All right. So what are we're going to dive into these neighborhoods, right? You know these neighborhoods like the back of your hands. Before doing that, some of the lessons learned, right? It's an interesting time that you got in the game. Just high level, what are some things from getting in at that time period and just untangling from all that, where it's shaped how you guys invest today?
So everything kind of ended with a pretty good story from all those broken conversions and things like that. But we learned a lot throughout the process. We had a lot of loans with larger lenders, and you get to see the other side of banks when deals go bad, right? Now you got your lender where you look at your loan docs and he could order you appraisals, annually, and you have to pay for them. And then, when the real estate market fell off below you, your value of what you bought and the value of what appraisers are telling you it's worth today is a lot less. And they're going to be like, well, you know what, your loan to value is out of whack. You need to come up with X amount of money right now to put your loan back in balance. So we were running into that, even though we had what was considered cash flowing, good debt cover ratio properties, but we were upside down because of these appraisers where the banks were really hard on them to really state their case on what things were worth at that time. And so that put us in to meet some new people at the bank, and that's where it really started to get interesting.
God, it's crazy from how things went from call it 2007 to just say 2009, where a condo that would have been appraised in 2007 might have been 150,000, but then and that was maybe being aggressive. And then the conservancy that kicked in, all of a sudden they're like 72, 73. And that shaped the fate for so many investors that all of a sudden had to recapitalize their properties for these banks. It was crazy how many people I saw lost just because of a bad appraisal back then.
Right. So, but we did have some good tools in our bag at the time too. So, the banks come at you and they say your properties are worth half of what you owe now. We have a $6 million loan, give us $3 million in the worst economic real estate time in history. And, obviously that's not happening. So we got to jump in and see see what you could work out. Ultimately the bank wants you to move your loan because it's upside down and out of balance, and you have to go find a place for your loan in a spot where no one's lending. So it got real interesting.
Do you still have those relationships? Those people who said yes to you at that time, are they still your go-tos? The people who said, we're with you.
So interestingly enough, when we had to move those loans and things like that, and the banks put us in, like a workout department just because of upside down appraisals, which is interesting though, because because you have a cash flowing property, right? Like in a good debt cover ratio. I'm saying we were honestly running at like 1.3, 1.4 debt cover ratios on these buildings, but that just didn't seem to matter at the time because we were just so upside down on an LTV perspective. So, when we had to move them, we started going around and meeting people and figuring out like, hey, how are we going to move these giant broken conversion loans? No one wants to lend on real estate right now. And that's where we met like some bigger broker lenders, the guys that pick their own appraisers.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah.
And are they still in your tool belt today?
Yeah, they are a little bit, but I'll go into why we don't really use them too much. But yeah, so we go to them and they say, here, this is what we could do. This is what we get it done. And we had to get HUD loans and CMBS loans and all these other crazy loan products to save all these properties from just basically getting handed over to the bank. So that's what I started my career working on. So I got to see a lot of a lot of interesting things and a bad side of real estate, but ultimately we came out on top, and we have a bunch of cool stories on how we got all these deals financed and ultimately deconverted and sold.
Well, let me ask the question then. In hindsight, you went through, sometimes this might have been years of adjusting. Was it worth all of it in the end coming out the other side? Or if you could do it again, would you have just handed it all back? I know there's a lot of people that go both ways. I wish I would have stuck it out, or man, I wish I would just threw it in the towel early.
If you listen to this show, as it say, real estate's a long-term game, right? Eventually, if you wait long enough, it's going to be worth it. And for us to unbooger all those deals and get to the point where they were even sellable anyways, it was very worth the wait at that point. We were able to do pretty well unloading, all these different random deconversions. And we sold a couple a little early, and we sold some at a really hot time when, apartments started heating back up and people got an appetite for this product and realized that, hey, there's some serious money to be made here because we could buy these complexes, turn them all back into apartments and rent them out.
Man, that's at the time, because you're pretty young when this is happening. Are you, just going about your day we'll get this figured out? Or are you losing sleep at this point?
No,
right? Because it's hard to lose sleep when you're, in your 20s, I feel, just because you don't know what you don't know.
I'm not losing sleep. My name's now ultimately not on the paper, but my dad was nice enough to drag me to all the meetings. I was sitting there with him in front of bank presidents, and had me on calls with vulture funds that picked up our loans when they got bought to the East Coast, sitting in front of a homeowners association meeting on the board of a 300 unit complex where we own half, and we got a bunch of angry people there because we have no money and the roof's leaking. So I got a lot of upfront, real, honest, good real estate experience in the beginning.
Gosh,
that's awesome. Amazing. Yeah, that's worth more than your DePaul education, I'd say.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
That's not a slam at DePaul. That's how valuable that lesson is.
That's that street degree right there, man.
That's a hell of an unpaid internship to start.
Yeah. All right. So Brian, talk to us about where you guys are today. So you guys it sounds like a similar strategy of, that I share of just, hey, we buy neighborhoods we like, we sit there, and then we buy another building when it pops up, and we hold and we hold and we hold. That's
so
real estate's a long-term game.
Right. He's not a guy who gets discouraged either. So we always thought let's go back to our grassroots, what we originally did before this, these 15, 20 years of craziness of this converting stuff. So originally he was buying apartment buildings and just managing them himself. We already had this infrastructure put together with all these broken conversions. We're all we have to do is get enough apartments to keep our infrastructure as we sell these, sell off these old deconversion deals. And so that's kind of where I really hit the ground running. The deal was we started basically a company. We came up with a fair split between me and my dad, and anything we found kind of just went into there, and we were both just like looking at it as owners, and I didn't have any money, but he had a good signature at that time to get all the loans and things like that. So that's where we started.
Cool. So let's talk about the areas here, right? So when I asked you where you're investing, you said, around Midway, some of those near South and Southwest suburbs. Talk to us about the area there. Like maybe just go north to south or east to west, however you want to describe the area, and just go. We'll dive in from there.
Cool. So I guess for furthest south, properties that we have are in Alsip, Illinois. And then, we jump to Chicago Ridge, which is just like kind of right in front of that. And then Burbank, which is in front of that. And then if you go right in front of that, you run into Chicago and what I call like Clearing or Garfield Ridge, or a lot of people call Midway. So areas themselves, all pretty similar. Outside of, one's actually in Chicago, but the suburban properties are all pretty similar. Each suburb, I think you guys have some on your website, have their own little nuances with being a landlord inside of them and things like that. But for the most part, they're all pretty similar, because at the end of the day, you're in Cook County. So
Alsip falls under a lot of Chicago. Like some of their resources they use I think Chicago resources for a lot of their stuff. So they're unique to be a landlord in. Like they don't have the rental license; they fall under the Chicago codes.
Yeah, Alsip. They have crime-free housing that's local. They do have like their own. They are involved though. They use some Chicago resources, but the villages themselves are still heavily involved with apartment buildings, getting your licenses there and things like that.
So, going from Garfield Ridge or Clearing, to one of these suburbs, what's the pros and cons in your opinion? Because I get that question all the time about, should I be in the city or should I be in the suburbs? And I'd love to hear other people's perspective.
Cool. So, just for round numbers, we paid about the same, for Property Ridge, Chicago, as we were paying in Alsip or Chicago Ridge or anywhere like that. So just trying to compare apples to apples. There's annual inspections in these little villages. Some of them where the fire department also inspects, which is a lot more, paying our guys to kind of sit around all day and wait for them to come out and look at it. In the city, we don't get any of those inspections really. We just get the boiler inspections on buildings that are larger. I think we only have it in a couple of our properties. We have to do the city boiler inspections. So, and then looking at it, we paid about the same price, right? And the tax bills are almost double in the suburbs as they are in the city. And also the water bill is probably about 30% higher as well.
That's a big jump. Do rents offset that, right? How are you just, hey, I know my NOI is going to be less out here?
So the rents are about the same too. So, that's why I really, really like sticking in my little pocket over here in Chicago. Valuing buildings today, I could kind of pay less for the suburb ones, more for the Chicago ones. But, you're always still kind of running that property test risk. Trying to figure that out is always fun. I'm sure everyone has their go-to guy that they send properties to tell you what the bad news is going to be. But yeah.
Well, looking at the stuff you have in Chicago, and you grew up in West Lawn, talks about kind of what you've seen and over, from being a little kid to growing up and getting into the business, and kind of, you're investing money into these neighborhoods now. What are you seeing that's good that's happening over there?
So I like to kind of consider this. This is just kind of like the backbone of Chicago. This is a lot of where you'll find a lot of office workers, blue collar workers, things like that. A lot of workforce of Chicago are in these areas. I happen to buy not where I grew up. I grew up east of the airport. I don't have any buildings over there, and not that I won't buy over there, but necessarily I haven't had anything that has made sense in that area. I'm mostly west of the airport, which is interesting because usually a lot of times people will follow the train systems and things like that. And if you look west over there is no train, or there is no, there's just buses and things like that. But I find that the customer, the tenant is usually of higher quality on that side of the airport. I feel we get a lot more demand on that side of the airport. We never really have any vacancies or things like that, and we don't have any trouble with collections either.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. We really went deep probably 2020 during COVID and bringing on properties for management in that clearing and Garfield Ridge. And I'll admit, I never realized how much I liked it over there. I never realized how much I didn't know about over there. So there's a lot of, I think we've only had a handful of turnovers in the last couple of years there out of 60 or 70 properties. And I think you have a lot more family or a lot of our tenants grew up in the neighborhood. So they're just trying to stay close to their family because they have mom as babysitter down the street. So a lot of those scenarios there where I do truly love that West Airport side, and I never really discovered it until recently.
Yeah, I mean, so my whole family lives over there. When we moved from the east side of the airport to the west side of the airport, a lot of people stay, like you said, not a lot of high turnover. It's just a really safe, comfortable place to live.
Brian, talk to me. We're talking about tenants here. Talk to me a little about tenant expectation. So in these buildings, and I know it's gonna be different each building, but if at high level, you got a 2-bed, 1-bath. What type of finishes are expected? Is it usually just, hey, one boiler for the building and they're good with that, with the radiators? Like, for someone who doesn't know the area, just talk to a little about, if you're buying a building, if you want to be competitive, what should you be providing to the tenant?
Just my opinion, but it's a lot more price-based neighborhood. So we're very conscious of that. So we're not in all these buildings. For reference, our boiler buildings. Every one I have is a boiler building. It's a 60s, 50s style construction. You'll see the cutout for the AC sleeves on the wall. And, we keep our units in very well maintained, kind of original condition. We do not put in, any type of like vinyl flooring unless the unit's really bad. We'll still use carpet. We don't put in like new cabinets. We'll keep the old wooden ones up there, and just kind of the white appliances, and just being real conscious that the demand is more price sensitive, as opposed to wanting stainless steel and granite and things like that, where your rent would have to jump to get those things. In-unit laundry is another thing we don't have. So.
Man, one thing that so Southwest Suburbs, you have a lot in the Western Southwest Suburbs, those yellow 60s built buildings, and the finishes then were amazing. Like, those cabinets are awesome. Like, if you can keep them clean and keep them in shape and not have a tenant wreck them one time, like, we have a lot of those buildings that have those. And I'm putting this out there to the listeners that these units tend to really hold their value. Like, you're not, even if you upgrade those cabinets, you're not going to get another couple $100 a month still. Like, so people are okay with clean and functional with, they call it this 60s built style stuff. So I think that's a huge thing to point out about the area. You brought something up already, and I don't know if we were talking about the show here, but these boiler inspections, like, and not a lot of people even understand. So one, the state only has, I think, 2 boiler inspectors, like, for the entire state, I think, something like that. But you're supposed to have maybe Brian, you want to tell us the law, so make sure I don't butcher it.
Well, you got to have an annual Illinois boiler inspection in all of your boiler buildings within Illinois, and that's the state. And then in the city, I think there's a certain unit count that you have to hit before you have to have a city boiler inspection as well. And only one of our properties hits that threshold. I'm not positive on the amount of units, but then you have to do that inspection as well. And you're supposed to keep a copy of annual certificate. You keep it right in the boiler room, and they're updated annually. And like you said, there's only a couple of them, so you start to see the same. You get on a routine with the same people, and take them around to all your buildings and make sure you keep your certificates updated.
Yeah. So a good tip here is if you come across an inspector, he calls you, save his number, because he'll probably be there for the next 10 years. Like, he has certain, I've given him certain combos, or he just tells me leave the door open, and we leave it open for certain buildings. But Tom, in Glenwood, when you had that 6-flat there, I remember when you took over that building, you had the violation on there because the city actually got involved, saying that because you didn't have the inspected. So some of these suburbs.
Yeah, I bought the building, and 3 days later, the fire department was there. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Some of the cities tie it in with a rental license piece as well, too. So, but that's crazy. There's something that you don't have to run to the state and make sure you're certified and everything every moment you buy a property, but just understand that's a risk out there, that if you have a boiler and you're technically supposed to have that little form from the state next to your boiler in your boiler room somewhere.
Exactly. You know, it's just it's like another thing to add to your due diligence list if you're buying a boiler building. Hey, do you have your, you know, current updated state certificate saying that your boiler's, you know, good for next year?
Yep. I saw somebody it was just recently that they put that in this first time I've ever seen it in the attorney review letter to make sure that that was provided, and it was, and it actually held up closing.
Oh,
That's
there you
nice.
go. Yeah, it makes it in my attorney review letter often too. So we always want to see that because it's not a big deal, like if they don't have it right, but you know, and now you're taking on, now you got to go get it, and you know, you never know if the inspector is going to make you do something, or
Yes.
it's just another one of those unknowns.
Yeah, minimize variables. Brian, talk to us about this area compared to, call it 5 years ago, right? Pricing's gotten higher everywhere across Chicagoland, everywhere across the nation. But for those of us not super familiar with the area, how have things changed? Like, have you seen, you know, a dramatic increase in price? Has it been slow and steady? Like, the way you're describing this, I feel this is very similar to some of the stuff I invest with on the north side, right? It's just, it's very residential. It's very blue collared. It's very slow and steady, and, you know, kind of the same as it was in the 90s, the 2000s, and like not a lot of change.
Well, what's really interesting about the area is there's only so many apartment buildings in this particular cut that I'm talking about. So, you know, as far as pricing, when one comes available now, it's kind of a mess to try and get it because, you know, there's just, it's not like you could buy these, you know, it's not like they're just for sale often at all. So pricing's really got expensive, you know, and I have been turning down a few buildings in my area just over pricing. It's putting a lot of pressure on all the rest of the numbers when you pay up for some of these buildings. Ultimately, maybe I think it would be worth it, but I was a little nervous about the round of assessments from the assessor in Chicago. I didn't know how hard he was going to hit our area.
Got it. Yeah. So talk to us about the housing inventory. So these larger multis that you buy, you know, not a lot of them out there. A lot of our listeners are house hackers. They're looking to, hey, where can I get into a 3-unit, a 4-unit for under 500K or whatever it is? Are there opportunities there in this neck of the woods, or is this a lot of just, you know, single family residential?
No, there are. So actually, I just helped one of my friends buy a 3-flat that I owned a 3-flat and I sold it to him. But yeah, it's in that area, you know, in that $500,000 range. And he was able to take advantage of, you know, some of those owner occupied lending that they give out that really make basically anything that you're okay with, like structurally, or, you know, you're okay with the area, you should definitely do, because to get that offered those type of lending terms, a fully 30-year fixed rate mortgage with minimal money down is just unheard of. So I especially like to get an actual asset out of it. So always a fan of telling people to buy whatever makes sense to them, but definitely do it.
Cool. Yeah, jump in the game, man. That's the easiest way to get in. The easiest way with training wheels. So,
100%.
all right.
So I'm doing the house hacking stuff down in Westtown. You know, I'm in a 2-flat that I redid, and now I'm looking for another one down there myself. Kind of by you guys inspired. I did do the 2-flat on my own, but then I'm like, you know what, you guys are right. The lending opportunities for owner occupied building is much different than what you're going to see if you sit in my shoes and try and go buy 30, 40, 50 unit buildings.
Yeah, huge advantages there. A lot of less cash out of pocket, just making it easier to keep scaling.
And then you don't have to worry about the numbers as much. You know, if it's an area you like, a building you like, even if, you know, someone else is paying down your debt and it doesn't really make any other money outside of that, that's great. That's another asset for you in your pocket. You don't have to worry about refinancing with your lender in 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So for what you're buying, inventory is tight. Have you considered looking in other areas, whether it be other parts of Chicagoland or just even across the Midwest or anywhere else? Are you know, this is it? This is where we're sticking our flag in the ground?
Not at all. No, I'm open to anything. I actually, throughout this, you know, scaling up to this point, I had a 48 unit complex in Three Oaks, Michigan. So, you know, we definitely are open to other areas. It's just between, you know, pricing and things like that, I haven't made sense of anything else yet. But yeah, no, we're always looking.
Well, let me ask from a standpoint of management. So you guys have grown this portfolio that's, you know, call it at a 10-mile radius, and obviously ease of management. How have you guys had to scale that piece of it? Because I think this is a huge conversation for a lot of people of what, after you get to a certain point, it makes sense to in-house it. What struggles did you have with that, or what points did you have to come to figure out how to manage this on a day-to-day?
Well, I think I was mentioning in the beginning when we were coming out of like the condo deconversions that we did have a bit of an infrastructure already kind of set up with in-house management, because we were doing all the HOA management and maintenance on these properties. So what I was trying to do was build up enough portfolio to absorb a lot of that existing management and put it into place. We did have to make some hires from there and things like that, but for the most part, it's the same people that we already had, and we just made sure we had enough doorbells for them to all keep their jobs and everyone to stay busy.
As somebody scaling up, do you recommend, maybe they get 100, 150 units? Do you recommend they start bringing on 10 employees, or do you say they stick with 1099 contractors? Like any advice you give on that?
So the rule of thumb was always, once you get around 100 doors, it's time to start, hiring and having your own stash. The problem with 1099 employees, unless they're, really reliable, is who's going to show up at 2 a.m. when you got a pipe burst, and an employee, that's part of their job. They'll be there. They're being time and a half, but they got to go out and do it. 1099 employee in Florida or something like that, now you're there.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing, because 430 units for many of our listeners is a lot. Can you just share high level? What does that infrastructure look like? Like, how big is that team? How is it divided up? Like, you don't have to give us the secret sauce, but just share a little bit of that structure, just so people can wrap their arms around it.
No problem. So so me and my dad are kind of on the higher level part, where our job is to kind of expand, do any loan maintenance, deal with any outside investors that we raise capital from, and then also obviously overseeing day-to-day operations, but we do it as kind of a higher level. When you get up to this many doors, below us, we have the guy who basically runs all of our operations. You call him like our VP of operations. He's in charge of all maintenance and all of our property managers. He's the guy who's really running the day-to-day operations. Hey, these guys are going here. We got this unit coming up, more handling that side of the business. And then I guess it kind of splits underneath him. You have the property managers, which we have 3 in-house. They're awesome property managers that's in charge of all rent collections, renting out units, doing showings, taking work orders. They're the first line with the tenants and customer service. So they have a really, really large job. And then on the other side of that is our true, really hardest workers, physically, are the guys that are day to day going in, doing our turns, doing unclogging, toilets, getting in the boiler room, whatever projects we have going on. When you have 430 units, you constantly have a problem. So, it's just whatever they're working on this week.
Cool. No, good stuff. And then are those guys doing that work? Are they your actual employees? Or are they contractors that you're friendly with?
So the guys doing the actual work are all our employees. The only things we sub out are roof work. We'll sub out, what else? Parking lot work. We're not going to do that ourselves. And it's things like that where we have to actually hire a sub for. Otherwise, everything that's happening, changing out tile, painting. If we do run into a bad kitchen cabinet, got to swap them out. That's all going to be handled by our in-house crew.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, man. You've built a pretty big operation so far. And you're pretty young guys still. Where do you want to be 10 years from now? Or where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Doing the same thing. I definitely want to continue to scale up. We still are nowhere near where our goal is for unit count. I guess that's what a lot of people go by. We want to at least double the size of our business that we're sitting here in, but market conditions have kind of put a hold on that for now. So whenever buying opportunities come available, we're going to take advantage.
Is the true metric a revenue based, or is it truly unit based?
Well, unit based, I guess, is like we always said, like we're build this up to 1,000 units, and the goal is to always try and maintain our all of our infrastructure. So, I'd say we're about at the bare minimum for the amount of infrastructure we have, and we wouldn't have to really make too many more additions as we scale up another 100 or 200 units. After that, there'd be some more, but we don't want to lose our infrastructure, but we want to also be able to continue to buy, grow, but then at the same time be able to sell some things and take some wins along the way. So trying to get like an operation like that where we're buying more than we're selling, but we're still selling some stuff here and there too.
You admitted that you're in an area that's doesn't have as many multifamily opportunities. How are you finding deals? Do you have an acquisitions person? Is that you? Talk to us about kind of how you're going to keep that machine going.
Yeah, so I'm the acquisitions, and to this point, this is the only way I've ever done it. Is my brokers. I keep really, really good broker relationships. I try and stay in touch with all brokers in the area. I always use a broker for the most part. I'm not going directly to these owners and trying to buy before, because I know my brokers are already doing that. So I make sure they are well compensated because they put in. We'll go look at a property and one of my favorite brokers will be like, I've been talking to this guy for 5-6 years. So, that's a lot of work for one sale.
Yeah, no, a good broker is worth his or her weight in gold, right? Like that's just so it's the gift that keeps on giving. They're worth or whatever percent you got to pay.
Yeah, exactly. And I am a licensed realtor and I do have my broker's license, but every single one of these buildings has been brokered to me. And my main job is just to make sure they remember we're here and that we're always buying basically. And, anything they need from us, get it to them fast. If they're looking for rent comps in there or something, people will give me a call up, no problem. I'm an open book to them as well. But yeah, that's been how we've grown is our relationship with brokers and always treating them with a high level of respect.
It's April 2023. What do you want to do the rest of this year? What's your goal? What problem you want to fix? What do you want to get better at? It could be personally or the business.
So last year was the first year in my career where I did not buy one apartment building, which is crazy. But yeah, since 2014, last year was the first year I did not buy anything at all. So this year, I'm just really trying to put together, I bought 1 6 flat so far, which isn't much, but it's something. And then hopefully string together at least two more deals before the end of the year.
Gotcha. Awesome. So what are you going to do different to make sure you accomplish that? We're drilling in today.
Yeah. So far, it's been more the same, honestly, and always keeping my mind open to different areas. I do get a little caught up in our economies of scale and keeping things within this kind of like rubber band that I've created. But just keeping my name out there. I go to your guys' events, things like that. Just being around as much people that are in the business as possible, and something will click.
Absolutely. No, love the mindset. So, Brian, you provide a ton of value here. Mark, we good to wrap?
We're good to wrap, man. We're good to wrap.
Let's do it.
All right, Brian, what is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do so much while others wish they could have done what you've done so far?
Well, a lot of it is, my dad's been essential for this growth. And outside of that, I've talked a lot about it, but the brokers, are just getting these deals in front of us and making sure we perform when we sign a contract.
All right. So think of like your buddy that you sold a 3-unit to. What is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that is looking to buy their first property here in Chicago?
I mean, it's just got to jump. You got to do it. As long as it's in an area you like and you're comfortable in, I really don't think you can make a mistake with some of the lending opportunities on the 2, 3, 4 units. And it's a great way to just get started.
Yeah, absolutely. You can make mistakes. They're forgivable. They're very forgivable.
More forgivable mistakes, especially if you live in it, it's like you have to if you bought a house, you have to take care of that anyways. So what's the difference if there's two more people in there?
All right, Brian, what do you do for fun?
Like I said, I live down in West Town, so I like going out and around Chicago, bars, restaurants, things like that. And then I like to fish. I go down to Florida a couple times a year and I fish down there. And then I also have a boat and fish on Lake Michigan here.
All right. Can you give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you'd recommend to our listeners?
So this is not a book, but I'd recommend subscribing or reading Crane's Chicago Business. It's something that I've followed this whole time, and I think it's a good way to keep your pulse on the local news and local real estate and other happenings in the city.
I love it. Since I was 17 years old, I've been picking that up. I used to have that. That's there's just so much information, so much you can learn locally here.
And since Mark gave me his password 2 years ago, I have also been very active reading.
Hopefully no one's listening.
My dad uses mine, so
yeah, a lot of people have my password. All right. Besides yourself, name one person in your network you'd highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource.
So I'd recommend my attorney, Latanis at Midway Legal. We could obviously link his information to the show notes, but yeah, it's just an instrumental part of everything we've done. He's been with our attorney for forever. You know, he's been with us in those conversions, deconversions, everything we're doing today. He's a very viable resource for anyone getting involved in real estate.
Brian, thank you so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Just reach out. You know, I'm always, I know even from your networking event, I had a couple people email me, but no question too dumb. And I answer my phone really quickly, and just give me a call. And if you're ever kicking something around or want to talk to someone about real estate, I'm always available for that.
Good stuff. All right, Mark, we've done one fact of the day already. Can you get two right? Who are you playing for, and who's this sponsored by?
All right. So Chicago Facts sponsored by NEGC. And we are playing for Don Ying, who bought a t-shirt out of Bridgeport. So Don, if I get this question right, or if Brian gets this question right, you'll get a $50 gift card brought to you by NEGC.
All right. So we did this question with O'Hare. So now I'm going to give you the Midway version. I'll give you multiple choice. Before being renamed to Midway Airport, what was the airport's original name? Was it Orchard Field, Chicago Municipal Airport, Chicago Ridge Runway, Chicago Lindenberg International? You got a 1 in 4 chance of guessing here.
I'm going to say Lindenberg.
All right, Brian, you get a shot too. What do you want to go with?
Chicago Air Park, wasn't it? Chicago Air.
Brian saves the day with Chicago Municipal Airport.
That's what I was going to go for. I was totally going to go for
my grandpa used to just call it Chicago Air, but yeah, Chicago Municipal Airport.
All right. So you got it right. Don, you get the $50 gift card brought to you by NEGC. Another interesting fact, I was watching call it a 30-minute clip on YouTube last night about Goose Island. And Goose Island was originally, when they were going to redevelop it back 50, 60, 70 years ago, they talked about putting Meigs Field there, but then they put Meigs Field where it ultimately ended up being. So they're actually going to put an airport there on Goose Island at one time. That was a plan. So kind of crazy. But all right, Brian, thanks for coming on. Tom, thanks always. Listeners, you got to check out our website. Now that we had our quarterly plan, by the time this hits, we'll have a bunch of cool stuff on there, build out your team, and then also some other resources that we are going to provide. So check that out. Make sure you are leaving us a review, and more so, make sure you're sharing us with a friend. You have friends that are in real estate, and we need you to share this show with them. Just right now in your thing, take it, share it, and forward it on to somebody that you know that they could benefit from this. So Brian, thank you very much. Tom, thanks as always. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.